You ever notice how we talk about finding our voice, but almost never about finding our frequency? Voices can be loud, but frequency is deeper. It's the invisible signal that tells people who you are before you ever speak. And here's the thing. Most of us are broadcasting on autopilot, static, muffled, out of tune. We've let the noise of the world decide our settings. This episode isn't about quieting the noise. It's about returning yourself so sharply, so intentionally, that you become impossible to misunderstand. Because your frequency doesn't shape the relationships you've had today. It could shape the first relationship humanity ever has with something or someone not from this earth. That sounds big, because it is. But the big moment isn't somewhere out there in the future. It's right here, right now. Every interaction you have today is training for ground for the future. So let's remember the frequency we forgot and get ready for the ones we've never met. This is a story how we lost our frequency and what happens when we find it again. This is higher level thinking. Are you ready? I am. I'm Jonah. I'm your person. Let's get to it. Welcome to Challenge Accepted with Jonah C. I want to take a moment to welcome new listeners to the show and a great big thank you to those who continue to walk this journey with me. In this part of the show, we're going to talk about the forgotten tuning. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped listening. Not to our phones or the news, those we hear loud and clear, but to the deeper signal that runs underneath all of it. The frequency of who we are at our best. We live in a time when information moves faster than thought, and reaction is valued over reflection. We've traded our internal compass for the next notification. And when you stop checking in with that inner signal, you drift. You stop noticing when your words don't match your intentions, or when your reactions don't line up with the person you want to be. You see, this isn't just about personal growth. It's about survival, and not just here on Earth. Look, if humanity ever meets intelligent life from beyond our planet, it won't be our technology that defines the encounter. It will be our capacity to communicate without fear, to connect without aggression, and to listen without ego. Those skills aren't built in a moment. They're forged here in the way we treat each other now. Think of every interaction as calibration, a conversation with a friend who sees the world differently, a disagreement at work, a moment where you choose patience over pride. Every one of these is a tuning fork for your frequency, an opportunity to bring it closer to alignment with the best version of you. Because when that day comes, whether it's meeting someone from another culture, another belief system, or another world entirely, you'll bring whatever frequency you've been practicing. And the stakes might be higher than you can imagine. So before we talk about what we might say to someone from beyond Earth, let's get honest about what we're saying to each other right here. This is the foundation. This is the real work. The frequency we forgot isn't gone, but we do have to remember how to hear it. So here's your first challenge. I call this one the daily tune-up. For the next 24 hours, notice every single emotional spike you feel. Frustration, excitement, impatience, joy. And ask yourself one question before you respond. What frequency do I want to be sending right now? Don't just think about being calm or positive. Think about broadcasting the version of yourself that you'd want to represent all of humanity if someone new to Earth was watching. When you're cut off in traffic, tune up. When a coworker disagrees with you, tune up. When a friend vents their frustration, tune up. If you can start practicing that level of awareness here, you're already building the skill set for there, wherever there might be. Let's talk about what I call the Earth test. We like to imagine that meeting extraterrestrials would be this singular, dramatic events. The ships appear, the world stops, history splits into before and after. But here's the test. The test is already happening. It's not about how we'd greet beings from another planet someday. It's about how we greet the barista, the delivery driver, the stranger at the crosswalk today. If we can't extend respect, dignity, and curiosity to people standing right in front of us, even the ones who frustrate us, why would we suddenly be able to offer it to someone whose biology, culture, or way of thinking might be incomprehensible? Right now, Earth is our practice field. Every human interaction is a simulation. You're training your nervous system in micro moments. When you pause instead of snapping. When you listen instead of planning your next rebuttal. When you choose to see the other person as more than just a problem to solve. Friends, higher level thinking isn't just about imagining the unknown. It's about preparing yourself so thoroughly in the known that when the unknown arrives, you meet it with grace instead of fear. Here's the thing. We will meet something new in our lifetime. It might not be extraterrestrial. It might be a new AI intelligence, a new global culture, or a new way humans connect. But it will feel alien. And how we handle that will depend entirely on how we've handled each other. So, if you think this frequency work is just about self-improvement, think bigger. You're rewiring yourself to be a better representative of humanity itself. And that starts not in the stars, but in the coffee shop, in the meeting room, in the quiet moments at home. All right, let's talk about one of the most important parts of this episode and one of the most important chapters of my upcoming book, The Frequency We Forgot. I call this one Micro Moments That Train Us. When people imagine preparing for extraterrestrial contact, they often picture grand gestures, such as international summits, the creation of new languages, or the unveiling of advanced technologies designed to bridge worlds. These are the big headlines, the stuff of movies and sci-fi fantasies. But here's the truth that often gets overlooked. Your readiness isn't built on spectacle. It's shaped, honed, and trained in the smallest, most forgettable moments of your everyday life. Every time you interrupt someone before they finish their thought, you're sending a silent message. You're teaching yourself impatience, disregard, and a subtle but powerful resistance to listening fully. Every time you roll your eyes when someone's perspective feels absurd or inconvenient, you're strengthening a barrier of judgment and dismissal. Every time you avoid that one coworker, family member, or friend because you just can't deal with their energy or opinions, you're rehearsing disconnection, rehearsing the habit of shutting down instead of opening up. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm super passionate about this topic. Look, tiny moments, which seem so insignificant at the time, are actually training your mind and your heart. They create neural pathways on how you will respond when real challenges to connection come your way. They are there as a foundation for your ability or your inability to bridge differences, hold space, and truly listen. But here's the powerful flip side. When you choose differently, when you pause before speaking, when you allow somebody the space to finish their thought without rushing in, when you actively seek to understand instead of instantly defend, you are rewiring your capacity for connection. You are training yourself for empathy, patience, and openness. And by the way, don't ever let anybody tell you that empathy is a bad thing or it's woke. Connection is not just a nice to have skill for interpersonal relationships. It is the only bridge strong enough to hold the weight of meeting another intelligence, or an intelligence that may challenge everything you think you know about reality, identity, and existence. If we can't hold space for another human's truth now, with all of its complexities and contradictions, how can we possibly hold space for a truth shaped by an entirely different existence? The preparation for extraterrestrial contact, then, is not found in the headlines or technological breakthroughs. It is found in these micro moments, lived quietly but intentionally every day. It is in the small choices we make to listen deeply, to suspend judgment, and to connect authentically. This is the training ground for humanity's next great leap. And here's challenge number 2. For the next 24 hours, treat every conversation, even the quick ones, like it's training for something bigger. So slow down, listen fully, and notice what shifts in you. Now let's talk about the weight of assumptions. One of the greatest barriers standing between us and true connection, whether it's with each other or with an entirely new form of intelligence, is our assumptions. We carry them everywhere, like invisible backpacks filled with expectations, fears, and judgments. We assume that others like what we like, feel what we feel, want what we want. And we assume that the world operates according to our limited understanding. But assumptions are the enemy of curiosity and openness. They shrink the possibilities of what can be, and they build walls where bridges are needed. Think about the last time you heard someone say something that immediately triggered a judgment or a dismissive thought. Maybe it was a political opinion, a belief about spirituality, or even just a different way of doing things. That moment where assumption took over was a choice point. You could have leaned with curiosity, asked questions, and opened yourself up to learning something new. Or you could have clung to your preconceived ideas and then shut the door. This pattern, repeated endlessly in our daily lives, trains us to close off. It builds resistance, not just toward others, but toward unfamiliar ideas and experiences. It dulls the very skills we need to thrive in a future where contact with the unknown is not just possible, but inevitable. When we imagine meeting an extraterrestrial intelligence, it's tempting to picture beings who look like us because it's comfortable. But what if their reality, their logic, their way of communicating is so foreign that our brains can barely process it? If we come to that moment burdened with assumptions, how will we respond? With fear, rejection, hostility? Or what if we could practice releasing assumptions right now? What if we could train ourselves to see each encounter, each perspective, each new piece of information as a window, not a wall? What if our default was curiosity instead of judgment? The future demands this of us. To prepare for true connection, we must become masters of unlearning assumptions and relearning wonder. Because in that space, beyond the weight of what we think we know, lies the possibility of genuine discovery and perhaps the greatest bridge of all. Let's talk about the body's role in readiness. We often think readiness is purely mental, knowledge, strategy, or intellect. But the body carries its own wisdom, often overlooked in preparation for anything truly transformative. Our nervous system is the first point of contact with reality. It registers threat or safety long before the mind fully processes a situation. When we meet the unknown, whether a new person or entirely different intelligence, our bodies react first. Are we tense or relaxed? Are we defensive or open? Do we feel grounded in our core, or is there a flutter of anxiety and avoidance? If we want to prepare for connection beyond the familiar, we must begin by tuning into our bodies. How do you carry your stress? How do you hold tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest? What stories does your body tell about safety and fear? Often, these stories are unconscious, but they shape our ability to be present. The truth is, you cannot fully embrace connection if your body is locked in survival mode. Healing, grounding, and cultivating mind-body awareness become essential training. Breath work, mindfulness, movement, these just aren't wellness trends. They are ways to reprogram our physical selves for presence and openness. Practices like yoga, tai chi, or even simple stretches help cultivate a deep connection to bodily wisdom. If your body resists, your mind will follow. Chronic stress can cloud judgment and trigger defensive patterns. But if you can cultivate bodily presence, the ability to stay calm, alert, and curious, you create fertile soil for genuine connection. This is the foundation upon which every other skill will grow. It's not just about being mentally prepared, but physically embodied. Imagine meeting another form of intelligence with a body that is tense, defensive, and distrustful. That energy alone could block meaningful communication. But a body that's open, curious, and relaxed invites dialogue and trust. This is the subtle but powerful edge in readiness. All right, here's your next challenge. Today, pay close attention to your body's signals during a conversation or social interaction. Notice any tension or urge to close off. Then take 3 deep breaths and consciously soften those areas before continuing. Reflect on how this shifts your experience, okay? You might want to journal what you notice or share it with a trusted friend. All right, let's talk about language as it pertains to what I call the map and the territory. So language shapes our reality, but it's also limited. The words we use create a map of experience, imperfect, incomplete, and often insufficient. When imagining communication with an entirely new form of intelligence, we quickly see the limits of our language. What if their way of expression is not linear? What if meaning is carried in tone, gesture, or emotion rather than words? Our current languages are built for human-to-human exchange shaped by culture, biology, and history. So, preparing for this means expanding our understanding of communication now. It means listening beyond words, tuning into emotional subtext, and embracing silence as a form of dialogue. Silence can speak volumes if we learn to listen. The shift requires humility. We must accept that our current language may fail us. And it's not about mastery, but about openness to new ways of being understood and understanding. Think about how you communicate today. Do you rush to fill silences? Do you listen to the tone beneath the words? Can you sit with ambiguity or discomfort in a conversation? Every time you communicate today or tomorrow, try noticing what's said beneath the words. Can you hear the healing behind the message? Can you hold space for ambiguity or discomfort? This practice will prepare you for the unknown languages that may come. And we might also consider how nonverbal communication plays a role. Gestures, facial expressions, even energy. Advanced communication may be multidimensional. So being attuned to these nuances builds our capacity to navigate the unfamiliar. Look, language also shapes thought. By expanding our vocabulary to include new feelings, concepts, or experiences, we expand our reality. This can be done through reading diverse perspectives, learning new languages, or creative expression. The readiness to communicate with the unknown starts with a willingness to step beyond familiar words and meanings and embrace mystery. All right, let's talk about emotional alchemy, turning fear into fuel. But before I talk about turning fear into fuel, I want to give you the definition of alchemy. I've only ever used this word about 5 times in my entire life, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and if you've never used the word or know what it means. Alchemy is a philosophical or proto-scientific tradition that combines elements of chemistry, physics, astrology, art, semiotics, medicine, mysticism, and religion. Now, let's talk about how it integrates with fear. Fear is natural when facing the unknown, but it doesn't have to be a barrier. And emotional alchemy is the process of transforming fear into curiosity and resistance into receptivity. When we face the prospect of extraterrestrial contact or any profound change, our primal fear systems can trigger fight, flight, or freeze. And these reactions come from ancient survival mechanisms embedded deep in our nervous systems. They can protect us, but they can also imprison us in defensive patterns that limit growth. So the challenge is learning to observe fear without being controlled by it. And this means building emotional resilience and mastery. It means naming your fear, feeling it fully, and choosing to move forward anyway. Each moment you practice this alchemy, you are rewiring your brain and nervous system. You are teaching yourself to thrive in uncertainty and complexity. Instead of fear shrinking your world, it becomes a doorway to greater courage and discovery. Also, emotional alchemy involves practices such as mindfulness, self-compassion, and cognitive reframing. When fear arises, instead of pushing it away or being overwhelmed, you turn toward it with curiosity. What is the fear telling you? How might it be transformed? And this process isn't quick or easy. It takes patience and commitment. But the payoff is immense. Greater inner freedom, clarity, and openness to new experiences. When the moment of contact arrives, whatever that looks like, those who have cultivated this alchemy will be ready to engage without being paralyzed. We're going to now talk about collective consciousness because we are more than individuals. Preparation for contact with an entirely new form of intelligence is not just a solo journey. It is deeply collective. The patterns we cultivate in our personal lives ripple outward, influencing groups, communities, and ultimately the global consciousness we all share. Our interconnectedness goes far beyond social media or neighborhood ties. Science increasingly shows us that humans operate within an intricate web of collective energy, awareness, and influence. What one person thinks, feels, and does subtly shifts the collective vibration. This is the unseen network we all are a part of, one that can either support growth or perpetuate fear and separation. The readiness we seek is therefore both individual and communal. When you choose empathy, kindness, and openness in your everyday interactions, you are contributing to a collective shift toward connection. And these moments may seem small or insignificant, but they build the culture of trust and cooperation that will be essential for any encounter with the unknown. And this collective consciousness is not just an abstract idea. Consider movements in history where shared belief and coordinated action created rapid change. Imagine how much more power this could be when applied to our global readiness for contact. The stories we will tell ourselves about each other and our place in the universe shape the possibilities of what can emerge. And by expanding our awareness beyond the individual self, we align ourselves with a higher purpose. We become conscious participants in the unfolding of a new chapter for humanity, one where the other is no longer a threat, but a mirror and a partner in evolution. In practical terms, this means engaging intentionally in community, whether that's a spiritual circle, activist group, workplace team, or even an online forum, and fostering connection, trust, and shared responsibility. It means practicing forgiveness, healing old wounds, and choosing cooperation over competition. Ultimately, the readiness to meet the other starts with the readiness to be fully present with each other here and now. All right, let's talk about the myth of separation. At the very heart of our collective challenges lies a powerful illusion, the myth of separation. This is the deeply ingrained belief that we are isolated beings, disconnected from each other, from other life forms, and from the larger universe itself. This myth feeds fear, loneliness, and division. It creates barriers between races, nations, species, and even within ourselves as fragmented parts of identity. We've been taught to see the world through lenses of competition, scarcity, and self-preservation. But the truth, as revealed by countless spiritual traditions and increasingly validated by science, is that all life is interconnected. We are threads woven into a vast cosmic tapestry, inseparable by Earth, from animals, from one another, and from the universe itself. So recognizing this unity is not merely an abstract insight. It's a radical shift in how we live and relate. So when the myth of separation dissolves, empathy flows naturally. Conflict softens, and cooperation becomes the default. This worldview invites us to move beyond survival-based thinking and into an expansive consciousness that honors the interconnected web of existence. It transforms how we treat the environment, how we build societies, and how we face the unknown. So preparing for extraterrestrial or interspecies contact challenges us to extend the unity even further, to include beings whose existence and consciousness may be profoundly different than ours. And this requires humility, openness, and a willingness to transcend old boundaries. So when we embody this truth, fear of the other diminishes. And we begin to see the universe as a shared home or a community of diverse intelligences. And this mindset is a foundation for peaceful, meaningful contact. Dissolving the myth of separation is an ongoing journey, okay? One that requires reflection, courage, and commitment. It asks us to heal divisions within ourselves and to act with compassion toward all life. So by embracing interconnectedness, we prepare not just for contact, but for a new era of collective evolution. Hey guys, if you're liking the podcast, please subscribe, share, follow, and like to keep the show growing. Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about the invitation as it pertains to you becoming the bridge. After exploring the many facets of readiness, from personal presence to collective healing, from bodily wisdom to expanding language and emotional alchemy, we arrive at the invitation that underpins it all. You are not a passive observer waiting for the future to arrive. You are an active participant in the unfolding story of connection. To prepare for contact with another intelligence is ultimately to become the bridge, a living conduit that connects worlds, realities, and dimensions. And this bridge is forged in your daily choices, your openness, and your courage. Becoming the bridge means embodying presence, the ability to hold space for difference without judgment or fear. It means cultivating curiosity that moves beyond the familiar and a compassion that honors all expressions of life. It means recognizing that every interaction, no matter how small, is a thread in the larger web of connection. And this is a profound responsibility, but also a gift. You are invited to step into this role with humility and grace, knowing that your efforts ripple outward in ways you cannot fully see. The bridge you build today, through empathy, healing, and expanded awareness, will support the meeting of worlds tomorrow. So the question stands, will you accept the invitation? Will you commit to being present in the micro moments of your life, training yourself for connection even when it's difficult? Will you hold space for others, for yourself, and for the vast unknown with courage? The future is not something that happens to you. It is something you co-create. And by becoming the bridge, you open the way for new possibilities, new understandings, and a new chapter in the story of humanity. This is the ultimate act of readiness. We stand now at a threshold, a place not just for possibility, but of profound responsibility. The stories we carry about ourselves, about each other, and about the cosmos are more than stories. They are the very threads that weave the fabric of our reality. What if the moment we've been preparing for The moment of true contact is not a distant event, but an unfolding now. Every breath you take, every word you speak, every choice to listen instead of react is a ripple across the vast ocean of existence. The other you might meet one day, whether from another star, another dimension, is already here in the eyes of every stranger, the heart of every friend, and the silence between your thoughts. To meet them fully, we must meet ourselves fully. We must break through the walls of fear and separation and open wide the doors of empathy and courage. This is the work, the sacred work of readiness. It is not about grand gestures or spectacular displays. It is the quiet revolution of presence, the small acts of kindness, the brave pauses, the deep breaths taken in the face of uncertainty. It is about becoming a living bridge between worlds, between hearts, between realities. So, as this episode closes, take this with you. You are not alone in this. You are part of great unfolding. And your readiness, your willingness to be present, to connect, to love, will shape not only your future, but the future of all life reaching out into the unknown. Are you ready to step across the threshold? Because the universe is waiting, and so am I. I'm Jonah. This is Challenge Accepted with Jonah C., Higher Level Thinking. Thank you for being with me here. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great week.